Before we begin, I request that you please let me know which city you are watching from in the comments section below. It helps me know how far my stories are reaching. Now, let's begin Robert's story. When my daughter Alice moved back in after my wife's funeral, I thought I was lucky. She made my coffee. She organized my pills. She said I was forgetting things. But the coffee tasted strange. The money started disappearing. So did my wife's jewelry. And every time I asked questions, she looked at me like I was losing my mind. So I played along. Until I found out what she was really after. The Facebook Marketplace listing stared back at me like a slap. Vintage diamond wedding ring, $200 OBO. Beautiful antique piece, must sell quickly. Martha's wedding ring. The one I'd slipped onto her finger 41 years ago. Worth at least $3,000, being hawked for $200. The seller's profile, Alice_Brennan 47. My daughter's name. My address. 3 months ago, Alice had wrapped her arms around me at Martha's funeral, tears streaming down her face. Don't worry, Dad. I'll move back home temporarily. You shouldn't be alone right now. I'd been grateful. At 63, recently retired from teaching high school English, the house felt impossibly empty without Martha's voice filling the rooms. But now, living with Alice, I'd started noticing things. Small changes that made me question myself. Dad, what are you doing up there? Alice's voice drifted up from the kitchen, sweet and concerned. I closed the laptop. Just checking email, honey. Your coffee's getting cold, and you need to take your morning pills. Pills. Alice had organized all my medications into weekly dispensers, color-coded and labeled. When had my simple blood pressure medication become for different pills? So much easier than trying to remember everything yourself, she'd said. Grief can make people forgetful. Forgetful. That word had been following me around for weeks. Downstairs, Alice stood in Martha's old apron, the yellow one with sunflowers. The coffee she handed me tasted different lately. Bitter, with an odd metallic aftertaste that left me drowsy by 8 p.m. Alice, I need to ask you something. Of course, Dad. What is it? Mom's wedding ring. Have you seen it? Alice paused, dish towel in hand. Dad, remember? You asked me to donate Mom's jewelry to charity last week. You said it was too painful to keep around. The coffee mug slipped in my grip. I never said that. You did, Dad. You were having one of your confused spells. Alice's voice carried that patient tone people use with children. You said Mom would want her things going to people who needed them. Had I really said that? These past months had been a blur of grief. But would I have given away her wedding ring? But I saw it online. Someone's selling it. Alice's expression shifted to gentle concern. Dad, that's impossible. I donated everything to St. Mary's Charity Drive. These memory lapses are getting worse. Maybe we should talk to Dr. Holloway. Memory lapses. Another phrase creeping into conversations. I swallowed the pills with the bitter coffee, trying to ignore the voice in my head that whispered something wasn't right. That evening, David and his wife came for dinner. My son looked at me with the careful concern reserved for fragile things. Dad, you look tired, David said as Alice served her famous lasagna. I am tired, I replied honestly. Alice bustled around the table, playing the perfect hostess. Dad's been struggling since Mom passed. The grief is really affecting his memory. What do you mean? David's wife asked. Forgetting conversations we've had, getting confused about money. Yesterday, he accused me of moving his reading glasses when he'd left them in the bathroom. I wanted to protest, but had I left them in the bathroom? The days seem to blur together lately. He's been getting lost during errands too. Alice continued sadly. Mrs. Kowalski mentioned he seemed disoriented coming back from the store. Mrs. Kowalski was our neighbor of 15 years. When had she said that? David exchanged a glance with his wife. Dad, maybe Alice is right about seeing the doctor. After dinner, I went to my bedroom to get money for Alice's grocery run tomorrow. I opened my wallet and counted the bills twice. $47. I'd had $350 this morning. Alice. I called downstairs. Did I give you money today? No, Dad. What? I'm missing $300 from my wallet. Alice appeared in the doorway, concern creasing her features. Dad, you probably misplaced it while you were confused. You've been having trouble keeping track of things. I don't misplace money. You bought groceries yesterday, remember? And you tipped the delivery boy $20 for bringing your prescription. I didn't remember any delivery boy. But then again, I've been feeling so foggy lately. Maybe check your pockets, Dad. Or your desk drawer. You've been putting things in odd places. After she left, I searched everywhere. No money. But something else was bothering me. I opened Martha's jewelry box on the dresser. The red velvet interior looked sparse, nearly empty except for a few pieces of costume jewelry. Wait, there had been more. Martha's pearl necklace from her mother. The silver bracelet I'd bought for our 20th anniversary. The diamond earrings she'd worn to Alice's college graduation. All gone. My hands shook as I stared at the empty box. I sat on the bed, trying to remember giving permission to donate these precious things. From downstairs, I could hear Alice on the phone. I know, Mom would be so proud of how I'm taking care of Dad. He had another episode today, asking about jewelry that's already been donated. No, I don't think he's ready to live alone yet. Episode. Donated. Ready to live alone. I opened Martha's bedside drawer and found one of her crossword puzzle books. On the inside cover, she'd written, "For when my mind needs exercise, MB." Martha had been sharp as a tack right up until the end. If she could stay mentally fit at 71, why was I supposedly falling apart at 63? I tore out a blank page and wrote. Things I remember clearly. My handwriting was steady. My memories of the past week were detailed and accurate. So why was everyone, including my own daughter, convinced I was losing my mind? I folded the paper and slipped it into my wallet next to the remaining $47. It was time to find out what was really happening in my own house. I waited until Alice left for her job interview, the third one this month that never seemed to pan out, before starting my investigation. The coffee maker sat innocently on the counter, but something about it had been nagging at me. I'd been making coffee the same way for 40 years, yet lately it tasted wrong. Bitter. Medicinal. I opened the machine and lifted out the filter basket. When I tilted it toward the window light, I saw them. Tiny white granules stuck to the plastic mesh. Not coffee grounds. Something else. I scraped the residue onto a paper towel. The granules were chalky, pharmaceutical-looking. Crushed pills. Benadryl, most likely. Alice had been drugging me. My own daughter had been poisoning me, then using my drugged state as evidence of mental decline. I scraped the evidence into a plastic bag. Next, Facebook. Creating a fake account felt ridiculous. John_Smith_teacher63. Not creative, but it would do. I searched Alice_Brennan47. What I found made my stomach drop. Vintage china set. Lennox holiday pattern. $300. Martha's Christmas china. The set we'd used every holiday for 4 decades. Antique book collection. Classic literature. $150. My first edition Mark Twain novels. Books I'd collected over 30 years of teaching. Sterling silver tea service. $200. Martha's grandmother's silver. Alice had been looting our house, selling 40 years of memories while convincing everyone I was too confused to notice. My phone buzzed. Alice, interview running long. There's soup in the fridge for lunch. Don't forget your afternoon pills. Afternoon pills. I examined the white tablets she'd left. No markings, no identification numbers. I flushed them down the toilet. An hour later, my head felt clearer than it had in weeks. The phone rang. Dr. Holloway's office. Mr. Brennan? Your daughter called about concerning symptoms. Can you come in this afternoon? What symptoms? She mentioned memory problems, confusion, and some aggressive episodes. Aggressive episodes? I'd never had an aggressive moment in my life. I'll be there at 3. When Alice returned, she seemed surprised to find me alert. How was your afternoon, Dad? You took your pills, right? Yes, I lied. At the doctor's office, Alice sat beside me, the picture of concern. Doctor, he's been getting progressively worse, she began. Sundowning. Confused in the evenings, forgetting conversations. Yesterday he insisted I stole something he donated to charity weeks ago. I tried to interrupt. That's not. He gets agitated when confronted with his memory lapses. Alice continued. Sometimes almost aggressive. Dr. Holloway made notes. Bob, how are you feeling? Strange grogginess was creeping in. Had Alice put something in my lunch soup? I feel tired. Confused. That's typical, Alice said sadly. Good moments and bad moments. Dr. Holloway prescribed anti-anxiety medication and suggested adult daycare to give Alice a break and provide social stimulation. In the car afterward, Alice seemed cheerful. See? Dr. Holloway agrees you need more support. That evening, I found Alice's iPad charging on the counter. The screen showed a WhatsApp group called Dad Updates. The participants were David, my daughter Karen from Seattle, and my nephew Tom. Alice, Dad had another bad episode today. Found him standing in the kitchen at 3 a.m., confused. Alice, he's getting paranoid. Accused me of taking his things. I had to hide the car keys. Alice, look at this mess he made. She'd attached a photo of our living room, books scattered, cushions thrown around. But I remembered that mess. Alice had created it yesterday while looking for documents. David, maybe it's time to consider assisted living. Karen, poor Dad. At least he has you. Tom, do you need help with finances? Dad's medical bills must be adding up. Alice, I'm managing, but his accounts are getting complicated. He forgets what he's spending. I screenshot everything before the screen locked. That night, I retrieved an old lesson plan book from the basement. If Alice was documenting my supposed decline, I would document the truth. Entry number 1. Found crushed pills in coffee maker. Alice drugging me with Benadryl. Selling Martha's belongings online while claiming I donated them. Told doctor I'm having aggressive episodes. Complete fabrication. I hid the journal inside an old grammar textbook. The next morning, Alice brought coffee as usual. I poured it into Martha's plant when she wasn't looking. Dad, we need to talk about your finances, she said over breakfast. Things are getting complicated. Maybe I should take over your banking, just temporarily. I can manage my own money, Alice. Her expression hardened. Dad, you forgot to pay the electric bill last month. You wrote a check to the grocery store for $800 instead of $80. Both lies. I'd been balancing checkbooks for 40 years. I don't need help. Yes, you do. The sharpness surprised us both. She quickly softened it. I just mean, with your condition getting worse, it would be one less worry. No. Alice's jaw tightened. For a moment, I saw something cold flash across her face. Then the mask returned. Fine. But when you mess up the bills again, don't blame me. She left with unusual force, slamming the door. That afternoon, I was watering Martha's roses when I heard Alice's voice through the kitchen window. She was on the phone, thinking I was napping. It's working perfectly, she said. The doctor thinks he needs daycare, and the family's discussing assisted living. Give me 2 more months, and I'll have enough to pay off everything. Pay off everything. I stood frozen among Martha's roses, finally understanding. This wasn't just about stealing family heirlooms. Alice was destroying my credibility, my independence, my relationships to cover up something much bigger. But what did she need to pay off? And how much money was involved? As I listened to my daughter plan my destruction, one thing became clear. Alice wasn't just stealing my belongings. She was stealing my life. The next morning, I played the confused father perfectly. Alice, honey, where did you put my reading glasses? I called from the living room, making my voice sound lost and frustrated. She appeared instantly, glasses in hand. Right here, Dad. You left them on the kitchen counter again. I hadn't left them anywhere. She'd moved them, just like she'd been moving my things for months to create evidence of my confusion. Thank you, sweetheart. I don't know what I'd do without you. The smile that crossed her face made my skin crawl. While Alice showered, I slipped next door to Mrs. Kowalski. Margaret Kowalski had been our neighbor for 12 years, a retired ICU nurse with sharp eyes and a kind heart. If anyone would believe me, it would be her. Bob, you're up early. She opened her door in a bathrobe, concern immediately creasing her features. How are you feeling? Margaret, I need your help. Can we talk privately? She led me to her kitchen. What's wrong? I pulled out the plastic bag with the crushed pills. I found these in my coffee maker. I think Alice has been drugging me. Margaret's expression shifted from concern to alarm. She examined the residue under her kitchen light. This looks like Benadryl. Maybe Tylenol PM. Bob, this is serious. There's more. I showed her the Facebook screenshots on my phone. She's been selling Martha's belongings while telling everyone I donated them. Margaret studied the evidence, her nurse's training evident in how she processed the information. The timeline matches. You've only seemed confused when she's around. When we've talked over the fence, you've been perfectly sharp. You noticed that? Of course I noticed. I've worked with dementia patients for 30 years. Your symptoms never made sense. She handed back my phone. What do you need me to do? Help me track her online sales. I need to know how much she's stolen. We spent 2 hours on her computer, creating spreadsheets of Alice's Facebook marketplace activity. The numbers were staggering. $12,000, Margaret said, adding up the final column. She sold $12,000 worth of your belongings in 3 months. My stomach dropped. I hadn't looked at my bank account in weeks. Back home, Alice was making breakfast. Where did you go, Dad? You scared me. Just talk to Margaret over the fence. You know how she worries. You shouldn't wander off without telling me. What if you got confused? I nodded meekly and accepted the coffee she offered. When she turned away, I poured it into the sink and refilled the mug with water. Alice, I think I should check my bank account today. Make sure everything's in order. Her stirring stopped. Dad, remember? We talked about this. Online banking confuses you. I've been monitoring everything. When did we talk about that? Last week. You were having trouble with the password, getting frustrated. Her voice carried that patient tone again. I said I'd handle it temporarily. I'd never given her access to my accounts. But if she had my debit card, I'd still like to check. Maybe you could help me. Alice's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Of course. After breakfast. But after breakfast, there was laundry to fold. Then a phone call from the insurance company. Then a sudden headache that sent her to lie down. By 3 p.m., I knew she was stalling. While Alice napped, I called the bank directly. First National, this is Amanda. How can I help you? This is Robert Brennan. I need to check my account balance. Of course, Mr. Brennan. After verification, your checking account shows a balance of $847. My blood turned cold. Last month, I'd had over $8,000 in checking. What about savings? Your savings account shows $2,340. I'd started the year with $23,000 in savings. Can you tell me about recent transactions? I can send you statements, but I see daily ATM withdrawals for the past 6 weeks. Mostly $300 to $500 amounts. ATM withdrawals. Alice had been bleeding my accounts dry, a little each day. I need those statements sent immediately, and I want to report unauthorized access. That evening, I began my performance. I shuffled when I walked. Let confusion cloud my features. Hesitated before answering simple questions. Dad, are you okay? Alice asked at dinner. You seem worse today. I feel mixed up, I mumbled. The days all blend together. Alice's eyes brightened. Perfect. The next day, while Alice ran errands, I followed her. She drove to a storage facility on the outskirts of town, parked in front of Unit 247, and disappeared inside for 20 minutes. After she left, I approached the facility manager. Excuse me, I'm Robert Brennan. My daughter rented a unit here. I think she lost the key. The manager, a heavy-set man named Pete, checked his records. Unit 247. Rented by Alice Brennan 3 months ago. You want me to cut the lock? That would be helpful. Inside the storage unit, my heart broke. Boxes and boxes of my belongings. Martha's china, carefully wrapped. My book collection, organized by author. Photo albums spanning 40 years of marriage. Furniture from our bedroom that Alice had claimed was too painful for me to keep. She'd been systematically looting our house, storing everything here to sell piece by piece. Damn shame, Pete said, surveying the contents. She told me her father had dementia, needed to downsize quickly. Said it broke her heart to sell his things. That night, I searched Alice's room while she slept. In her desk drawer, beneath insurance papers and old bills, I found what I was looking for. Credit card statements. 5 different cards, all maxed out. Total debt, $31,000. Then I found the student loan documents. Another $14,000 for the online marketing degree that had led to her failed business venture. $45,000. That's what Alice needed. And my house, my savings, my independence. It was all just collateral in her desperate scheme. The next morning, Alice seemed unusually excited. Dad, I have wonderful news. I found the perfect place for you. She spread brochures across the kitchen table. Sunset Manor Memory Care. It's beautiful, and they specialize in people with your condition. I stared at the glossy photos of smiling elderly people in wheelchairs, supervised activities, locked doors disguised as safety features. It costs $4,000 a month, but your savings should cover it for a while. And if we sell the house? Sell the house. There it was. David and Karen are coming for dinner tonight, Alice continued. We can discuss the details then. They're so worried about you, Dad. They'll be relieved to know you'll have professional care. I nodded weakly, playing the confused old man she needed me to be. But inside, I was planning her destruction. Tonight, Alice thought she'd present the family with a fait accompli. Confused father, perfect solution, grateful family. Instead, she was about to discover that her confused father had been 3 steps ahead of her all along. Come on, Dad. You'll love Sunset Manor. Alice said as we pulled into the parking lot of the memory care facility. It's exactly what you need. I let confusion cloud my features as we walked through the automatic doors. The lobby smelled like disinfectant and artificial flowers, designed to look cheerful while hiding the reality of locked doors and supervised lives. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan? A woman in scrubs approached with a practiced smile. I'm Janet, the admissions coordinator. Ready for your tour? As we walked through sanitized hallways lined with wheelchairs and vacant stairs, I played my part perfectly. I stumbled slightly, squinted at signs, asked where the bathroom was twice. Dad's been having more episodes lately, Alice explained to Janet. Getting dangerous, really. Yesterday he left the stove on all night. I'd never left the stove on in my life. We paused outside the nurse's station, where Janet excused herself to get some paperwork. That's when I heard Alice's real conversation with another staff member. How quickly can we get him admitted? Alice asked quietly. He's becoming a danger to himself and others. Well, with a doctor's recommendation and family consent, we can do accelerated admission for confused patients, the nurse replied. Sometimes waiting makes things worse. Exactly. His condition is deteriorating rapidly. My blood ran cold. Alice had already laid the groundwork for my imprisonment. Back home, I retreated to my bedroom and opened my hidden journal. Over 3 weeks, I documented everything with the precision of the teacher I'd been. Entry number 15. Alice drugged coffee at 7:15 a.m. By 8:30 a.m., felt drowsy and disoriented. Alice called David at 8:45 a.m. reporting Dad having another confused morning. By 10 a.m., no coffee. Mental clarity returned completely. Entry number 18. Found Alice moving car keys to different location. When I looked for them, she said I'd misplaced them again. Keys were in kitchen drawer. I never put keys there. Entry number 22. Alice claims I forgot to turn off garden hose, flooded flower bed. I never turned on hose. Alice must have done this herself to create evidence of my confusion. Page after page of clear, precise handwriting. Timestamps. Details. Patterns. Anyone reading this journal would see immediately that my mind was sharp, and that Alice was systematically creating false evidence of decline. The next morning, Alice made her move. Dad, I've called David and Karen. They're coming for dinner tonight to discuss your care needs. What care needs? Alice's expression grew concerned. Dad, last night you nearly burned the house down. You left a dish towel on the stove burner. I found it smoldering at 2 a.m. I stared at her. That never happened. It did, Dad. You were sleepwalking, confused. I was so scared. Her voice carried perfect worry. I can't keep you safe by myself anymore. Another complete fabrication. But who would believe me over my devoted daughter? While Alice showered, I called Margaret Kowalski. Margaret, I need your help with something technical. What do you need, Bob? A small camera. Something I can hide in the kitchen. 20 minutes later, Margaret appeared at my back door with a tiny device. Nanny cam. My daughter used it when her babysitter was acting strange. Records everything to an app on your phone. We positioned it behind the coffee maker. Lens pointed at the counter where Alice prepared my morning drinks. Bob, this is going to be hard to watch, Margaret warned. Seeing your own child? I know, but I need proof. That evening, David and Karen arrived looking worried and exhausted. Karen had flown in from Seattle specifically for this emergency. Dad, you look tired, Karen said, hugging me carefully. I am tired, I replied honestly. Alice bustled around, playing the overwhelmed caregiver. I'm so glad you're both here. I can't handle this alone anymore. She launched into a carefully crafted narrative over dinner. The near fire, the wandering at night, the increasing aggression when confronted about his mistakes. He accused me of stealing Mom's jewelry, Alice said tearfully. Jewelry he donated to charity himself. He's getting paranoid, seeing threats where there are none. David studied my face. Dad, do you remember donating Mom's things? I let uncertainty flicker across my features. Sometimes the days blur together. Perfect performance. Alice beamed. The doctor thinks specialized care is necessary, Alice continued. I found a wonderful facility. Sunset Manor. She produced the brochures like a magician revealing a trick. It's expensive, Karen said, studying the costs. Dad's savings will cover it initially, and if we sell the house, he'll have years of care paid for. There it was again. Sell the house. David looked uncomfortable. Maybe we should get a second opinion. Another doctor. There's no time, Alice said urgently. Last night's incident could have killed us both. What if next time I don't wake up in time? As my children debated my future like I wasn't there, I excused myself to use the bathroom. Instead, I checked the nanny cam app on my phone. The morning's recording was crystal clear. Alice crushing white pills into powder. Alice stirring the powder into my coffee. Alice tasting it, adding more powder, then practicing a concerned expression in the microwave's reflection. Then, 40 minutes later, Alice calling David. Dad's having another bad morning. Very confused and agitated. I'm really worried about his safety. The timestamp showed she made this call while I was sitting peacefully in the garden, completely lucid. I had her. Back at the dinner table, Alice was wrapping up her presentation. I think we should schedule the admission for next week, she said. Before something terrible happens. Next week seems fast, Karen said hesitantly. Karen, you don't see him every day. The decline is accelerating. Yesterday, he got lost coming back from the mailbox. I'd never gotten lost coming back from the mailbox. Our mailbox was 50 feet from the front door. What do you think, Dad? David asked gently. I played the confused elderly man perfectly. Whatever you all think is best. I trust Alice's judgment. Alice's smile was triumphant. After David and Karen left, promising to think about it overnight, Alice seemed energized, almost manic. I'm so proud of you tonight, Dad. You handled that really well. I just want what's best. It is what's best. You'll see. Sunset Manor will take such good care of you. That night, I waited until Alice went to bed, then crept downstairs. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, displaying her email. What I found made my hands shake. An email thread with Sunset Manor, dated 3 days ago. Admission scheduled for Robert Brennan, Monday, September 18th. Room 247 reserved. First month payment, $4,000, processed. Patient transport arranged for 10 a.m. Monday was in 4 days. Another email, this one to a real estate agent. House will be available for listing once father is relocated to care facility. Expect 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch to sell quickly at current market rates. Please prepare comparative market analysis. Alice had already scheduled my admission, had already contacted a realtor. The family dinner hadn't been a discussion. It had been theater, designed to make David and Karen feel involved in a decision that was already made. I photographed everything with my phone, then crept back upstairs. In my bedroom, I found evidence of Alice's other preparations. One of my suitcases, partially packed with clothes I never wore. Toiletries I didn't recognize. A folder labeled Dad's Care Instructions, filled with fictional medical history and behavioral notes. She'd been preparing for weeks. I opened the folder and read Alice's fabricated accounts of my episodes. September 1st, father left stove on overnight, nearly caused fire. September 3rd, found wandering in yard at 3 a.m., disoriented and calling for deceased wife. 9/5, became aggressive when confronted about missing money, accused family of theft. Every entry was a lie, but they painted a picture of rapid cognitive decline that would justify immediate institutionalization. At the bottom of the folder, I found the coup de grace, power of attorney documents, pre-signed with my forged signature, granting Alice complete control over my finances and medical decisions. Monday morning, while I was drugged and confused from her poisoned coffee, Alice planned to have me declared incompetent and shipped off to Sunset Manor. By Monday afternoon, she'd have legal control of my life savings and the authority to sell my house. It was a perfect plan, except for one small problem. Alice had no idea that her confused, helpless father had been documenting every lie, recording every crime, and building an airtight case against her. Tomorrow's family meeting wasn't going to go the way she expected. Not even close. Friday afternoon, I was napping peacefully in my recliner when sirens woke me. Through the living room window, I saw an ambulance pulling into our driveway, followed by a fire truck. What the hell? Alice burst through the front door with 2 paramedics behind her. There he is, she cried, pointing at me like I was a dangerous animal. He's been having episodes all morning. Confused, agitated, talking to people who aren't there. I sat up, completely alert. What's going on? The lead paramedic, a young woman named Sarah, knelt beside my chair. Sir, your daughter called 911. She said you were having a dangerous confusion episode. I was taking a nap. Dad, you were talking to Mom, Alice said, her voice trembling with fake concern. You were having a full conversation with her. When I tried to explain she wasn't there, you got angry. The paramedics exchanged glances. Sarah checked my pulse, shined a light in my eyes, asked me basic questions. Name, date, address, current president. I answered everything perfectly. Sir, you seem completely oriented, Sarah said. Blood pressure's normal, pulse is steady. He has good moments, Alice explained quickly. The episodes come and go. That's what makes this so dangerous. You never know when he'll have another one. The second paramedic made notes. Has he seen a doctor recently? Oh yes, Dr. Holloway is very concerned. We're looking into memory care facilities. After the paramedics left, convinced I was fine, but noting Alice's concerns in their report, Alice seemed almost energized. Dad, I was so scared. You were talking to the empty chair where Mom used to sit, asking her about dinner plans. That never happened. It did, Dad. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You don't remember your episodes. Another lie. But who would believe me over the devoted daughter who'd called 911 out of concern? An hour later, my phone rang. David. Dad, Alice called me about the ambulance. She says you're getting worse. I'm fine, David. I was napping. Dad. David's voice carried that careful tone. Alice says you were hallucinating, talking to Mom like she was still alive. That's not what happened. Dad. She wouldn't call 911 unless she was really worried. Maybe it's time to seriously consider the memory care option. After I hung up, I realized Alice's strategy. The false 911 call wasn't about getting me hospitalized. It was about creating an official record of dangerous episodes that she could use to justify immediate institutionalization. That evening, I slipped next door to Margaret's house with my evidence box. Margaret, I need your help organizing everything. Alice is moving faster than I expected. We spread it all across her dining room table, like we were preparing for trial. My journal with 3 weeks of detailed entries. Screenshots of Alice's Facebook sales. Bank statements showing the stolen money. Photos of the storage unit. The nanny cam videos of Alice drugging my coffee. This is overwhelming evidence, Margaret said, studying the timeline. No judge would question your competency after seeing this documentation. There's more. I showed her Alice's emails about the scheduled admission, the realtor contact, the forged power of attorney documents. Margaret whistled low. She's been planning this for months. Bob, you need to call the police. Not yet. I want to catch her in the act, in front of the whole family. I want David and Karen to see exactly who Alice really is. What are you thinking? I'm going to give Alice exactly what she wants, a confused, helpless father ready for memory care. And then I'm going to spring the trap. Saturday morning, I put my plan into action. I waited until Alice was making breakfast, then stumbled into the kitchen wearing yesterday's clothes, hair disheveled, confusion clouding my features. Alice, where am I? This isn't. Where's Martha? Alice's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. Dad, you're at home. Mom's not here anymore, remember? Not here? Where did she go? We were supposed to have dinner. I let my voice trail off, looking around the kitchen like I'd never seen it before. Dad, sit down. Let me get you some water. I shuffled to the table, maintaining the performance. I feel so confused. Everything's blurry. Alice was already reaching for her phone. I'm calling David. And Karen. This is exactly what I was worried about. Don't call anyone. I just need a minute. But Alice was already dialing. David? You need to get over here right now. Dad's having a major episode. He doesn't know where he is. He's asking for Mom. Yes, I think this is it. We can't wait anymore. 20 minutes later, David arrived looking panicked. Karen was on speakerphone from Seattle. Dad. David's voice was gentle, like he was talking to a child. How are you feeling? I blinked at him slowly. David? When did you get so old? You look just like your grandfather. Alice squeezed David's arm triumphantly. This was exactly the evidence she needed. Dad, what year is it? David asked. I pretended to think hard. 1987? No, that's not right. Martha, what year is it? I called toward the empty living room. Alice's phone was buzzing with texts. She'd called everyone. Karen, Tom, probably Dr. Holloway too. I think we need to make some decisions today, Alice said urgently. He can't stay here anymore. It's not safe. David looked torn between concern and practicality. The memory care place you mentioned? Sunset Manor. They have an opening Monday. I already filled out the paperwork, just in case. Just in case. Right. I let my confusion performance continue for another hour, playing the helpless old man Alice needed me to be. Then, as if a fog was lifting, I became more lucid. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I don't know what happened. I felt so lost." "It's okay, Dad," David said, relief evident in his voice. "These things happen. Maybe Alice is right. Maybe I do need help." Alice's smile was radiant. "Dad, I'm so proud of you for admitting that. It takes courage. If you think Sunset Manor is the right place." "I do, Dad. I really do." "Okay, if you think it's best." Alice was practically vibrating with excitement. Her plan was working perfectly. "I'll call everyone," she said. "Emergency family meeting tonight. We can finalize everything." After David left, Alice spent the afternoon making calls. Karen was booking the first flight back. Tom was driving down from Portland. Even some of my distant relatives were being summoned for this difficult family decision. "Everyone's so worried about you, Dad," Alice said over dinner. "But they'll be relieved to know you're getting proper care." I nodded weakly, playing the defeated old man accepting his fate. But inside, I was calculating. Tonight, Alice would gather my entire family to witness my surrender. She'd present her evidence of my decline, her research into care facilities, her selfless devotion to my well-being. She'd expect grateful acceptance of her sacrifice, praise for her dedication, authorization to proceed with the admission on Monday. What she'd get instead was a master class in how a retired English teacher destroys a liar's credibility in front of an audience. Alice thought tonight's meeting would be her moment of triumph. She had no idea it would be her public execution. By 7 p.m., my living room looked like a family funeral. David sat rigidly on the couch beside his wife. Karen had caught the red eye from Seattle, her eyes puffy from crying during the flight. My brother Pete drove down from Portland, shaking his head at the tragedy of my condition. Even my nephew Tom was there, looking uncomfortable in his work clothes. Alice bustled around playing the perfect hostess. Bringing coffee and cookies like this was a social gathering instead of a family intervention. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Alice began, her voice trembling with emotion. "I know this is hard, but we can't ignore Dad's condition anymore." She'd prepared a presentation worthy of a corporate boardroom. Photo evidence on her iPad. Medical terminology she'd researched. A timeline of my supposed decline. "The episodes are getting more frequent and more dangerous," she continued, swiping through photos on her tablet. "Look at this." She showed them pictures of our living room in chaos. Books scattered across the floor, couch cushions overturned, papers everywhere. "This is what I found yesterday morning." Dad had torn the place apart looking for Mom's jewelry, insisting someone had stolen it. Karen gasped. "Oh, Dad, I recognized that mess. Alice had created it herself while I was at Margaret's house, then photographed it as evidence." "And this," Alice continued, showing another photo. "The kitchen after one of his confusion episodes. He was trying to cook breakfast but forgot what he was doing. The photo showed the stove covered in spilled food, cabinet doors hanging open, flowers scattered across the counter. Another mess Alice had staged. "The doctor is very concerned," Alice said, pulling out official-looking documents. Dr. Holloway's evaluation clearly shows rapid cognitive decline. She read from what appeared to be a medical report. Patient exhibits significant short-term memory loss, spatial disorientation, and increasing agitation when confronted with reality. David studied the papers. "This looks serious." "It is serious. Yesterday, Dad called 911 himself because he thought strangers had broken into the house. It was me and Margaret from next door. That never happened. But Alice's performance was flawless, the concerned daughter overwhelmed by her father's deteriorating condition. "I've researched the best care facilities in the state," she continued, spreading brochures across the coffee table. "Sunset Manor specializes in memory care. They have an opening Monday." Uncle Pete leaned forward. "Monday? That's awfully fast." "Uncle Pete, we can't wait." Last night, Dad left the house at 2 a.m. in his pajamas. A neighbor found him 3 blocks away, asking for directions to a house we sold 20 years ago. Another complete fabrication. I'd slept soundly all night. Alice's eyes filled with tears. "I can't keep him safe by myself anymore. What if he wanders into traffic? What if he leaves the stove on and burns the house down?" Karen was crying now. "Dad, do you understand what Alice is saying? I let confusion cloud my features, just as I practiced. Sometimes I feel mixed up, like I'm lost in my own life. See, Alice said gently. He has moments of clarity, but they're getting rarer. Tom shifted uncomfortably. What about the costs? Memory care is expensive. Dad has savings. And if we sell the house, he'll have years of care covered. Alice's voice carried the weight of reluctant necessity. I know it's hard, but we have to think about what Mom would want. The room fell silent. Invoking Martha's memory was Alice's masterstroke. David cleared his throat. Dad, what do you think? Do you feel like you need help? I looked around the room at my family, all staring at me with pity and concern. This was Alice's moment of triumph. Her confused, helpless father accepting his fate, while his grateful family praised her devotion. I began slowly. I think Alice is right. I do need help. Alice beamed. Dad, I'm so proud of you for being brave enough to admit that. In fact, I continued, I think we all need to understand exactly what kind of help I need. I reached into the folder beside my chair, the same folder I'd been preparing for weeks. Alice, before we finalize anything, could you explain these? I pulled out my journal and set it on the coffee table. 23 days of meticulous documentation, written in clear, precise handwriting. Alice's smile faltered. Dad, what is that? This is my daily journal. Every entry dated and detailed. Funny thing, according to your timeline, I should be too confused to write coherently. But look at this. I flipped to random pages, showing my family entries like Day 15. Alice drugged morning coffee with crushed Benadryl. Felt drowsy by 9 a.m. Alice called David at 9:30 reporting another confused episode. By 11 a.m., no more coffee. Mental clarity completely restored. The room went dead silent. Dad, where did you get this? David asked, studying the handwriting. I wrote it. Every word. Because I knew Alice was lying about my condition. I pulled out my phone and opened the Nanny Cam app. I also have video evidence. On the small screen, crystal clear, was this morning's footage. Alice crushing white pills into powder. Alice stirring the powder into my coffee. Alice tasting it and adding more. Alice practicing her concerned expression in the microwave's reflection. Then, 30 minutes later, Alice calling David. Dad's having another terrible morning. Very confused and asking for Mom. The timestamp showed me sitting peacefully in the garden, completely lucid. Karen's face went white. Alice, what is this? I can explain. Alice stammered. Dad, you asked me to help with your medications. You forget to take them, so I put them in your coffee. Benadryl isn't my medication, I interrupted. And you've been doing this for months. I produced the bank statements. $20,000 stolen from my accounts through unauthorized ATM withdrawals. David grabbed the statements. These are all Alice's signatures on the withdrawal slips. There's more. I showed them screenshots of Alice's Facebook sales. $12,000 worth of your mother's belongings sold online, while Alice claimed I donated them to charity. Uncle Pete stared at the photos. That's Martha's china set, the one from your wedding. And this, I continued, pulling out photos of the storage unit, is where Alice has been hiding everything she planned to sell. The evidence kept coming. Photos of the staged messes. Recordings of Alice's fake phone calls. Copies of her emails scheduling my admission and contacting realtors. Oh my God, Karen whispered. Alice, you've been planning this for months. Alice looked around the room like a trapped animal. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. I lost my job, my business failed, I owe money. So you decided to drug Dad and steal his house. David's voice was ice cold. I was trying to protect him. He was confused after Mom died. Someone had to make decisions. By poisoning him with sleeping pills? I never poisoned anyone. I helped him relax so he wouldn't get agitated. Tom stood up. Alice, you convinced us all that Dad was losing his mind so you could steal his money. Alice's composure finally cracked completely. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at the damning evidence spread across the coffee table. Okay, yes, I took some money, but Dad was already declining. You all saw it. The confusion, the memory problems that I caused by drugging him, I said quietly. You were getting old anyway. You didn't need all that money sitting in accounts. I was just managing things until what, Alice? Alice's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Then she looked at me with something approaching hatred. Until you died, okay? Until you died and I could inherit what was rightfully mine anyway. The room erupted. David jumped to his feet. Karen started crying. Uncle Pete swore under his breath. But I wasn't done yet. There's one more thing you all need to know, I said, pulling out the final piece of evidence. Alice didn't just plan to steal my money and house. She planned to make sure I never got out of that memory care facility to stop her. I pulled out the final folder, the one that would destroy what remained of Alice's credibility. The $20,000 she stole from my bank accounts was just the beginning, I said, spreading financial documents across the coffee table. Alice also took $23,000 in cash from the safe in my bedroom, money I'd saved for emergencies. David's face went pale. Dad, you had that much cash in the house. Your mother insisted on keeping emergency funds. Alice found it 2 weeks ago. I showed them the forged signature on a credit application. She also applied for a $50,000 line of credit using my house as collateral, without my knowledge or consent. Karen studied the signature. This handwriting. It's close, but it's not Dad's. The bank noticed too. That's why the application was flagged for review. Uncle Pete did quick math. Jesus Christ. Alice, you stole over $60,000. It wasn't stealing. Alice screamed. It was my inheritance anyway. I was just accessing it early. By committing fraud, Tom said quietly. I pulled out more documents. There's also this medical fraud. The papers showed Alice's communications with Dr. Holloway's office. Emails where she described fictional episodes, reported non-existent symptoms, and requested evaluations based on fabricated incidents. Alice told the doctor I'd been having sundowning episodes and aggressive outbursts, I read from the email chain. She requested immediate competency evaluation and asked about procedures for declaring me mentally incompetent. David grabbed the papers. She was trying to have you declared incompetent, so she could get legal control of my finances and medical decisions. Look at this. I showed them the forged power of attorney documents Alice had prepared, ready to be filed once I was safely locked away in memory care. Once I was institutionalized and she had power of attorney, Alice could sell the house, liquidate my investments, and control every aspect of my life. Karen was crying again, but now from anger instead of sadness. Alice, we almost put Dad in a nursing home based on your lies. You all saw his confusion. Alice protested desperately. The memory problems were real. Because you were drugging him. David shouted. Alice looked around the room frantically, trying to find any sympathy. I was under so much pressure. My business failed. I owed money to dangerous people. I didn't know what else to do. So you decided to destroy Dad's life instead of asking for help. Uncle Pete's voice carried decades of disappointment. I was going to pay it all back once I got on my feet again. With what money? Tom demanded. You were planning to steal everything he owned. I pulled out the most damning evidence yet. Alice's browser history from her laptop, showing she'd researched how to have elderly parents declared incompetent, how long memory care admissions typically last, and what happens to assets when seniors are institutionalized. She also researched average life expectancy for men my age in memory care facilities, I said quietly. 18 months. The room fell into horrified silence. Alice was planning for me to die in that facility, alone and confused, while she lived in my house and spent my money. David stood up, towering over his sister. You were going to let Dad die thinking he was losing his mind? I never wanted him to die. Alice sobbed. I just needed time to fix everything. By keeping him drugged and locked away? You don't understand what it's like to lose everything. To have people threatening you. Karen wiped her tears. So you threatened Dad instead? Alice's desperation reached a crescendo. He's old. He doesn't need all this space, all this money. I'm young. I have my whole life ahead of me. The casual cruelty of it silenced even her sobs. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. Margaret called the police an hour ago. Alice's face went white. What? She's been documenting everything with me. As a retired nurse, she's a mandated reporter for elder abuse. She had no choice but to report what we discovered. You called the police on your own daughter? Alice screamed. I called the police on a criminal who happens to share my DNA. Alice jumped up from the couch. I'm not staying here for this. She ran upstairs, and we could hear her moving around frantically in her bedroom. David looked at me with something approaching awe. Dad, how long have you known? I suspected something was wrong after the first week, but I didn't have proof until I found Martha's ring online. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Because she'd convinced you I was losing my mind. Who would you have believed? Your confused father or your devoted sister? Karen shook her head. I'm so sorry, Dad. We should have listened to you. She's very good at manipulation. She had me doubting myself for weeks. Tom was studying the evidence. This documentation is incredible. You built a case like a prosecutor. 40 years of teaching high school English. You learned to build arguments with evidence. Alice came thundering down the stairs with a suitcase, heading for the front door. Where are you going? David demanded. Somewhere I won't be treated like a criminal for trying to help. But Uncle Pete was studying what she'd packed. Through the partially open suitcase, we could see Martha's remaining jewelry, my coin collection, and several expensive items from around the house. Alice, those aren't your things, he said. Everything in this house should be mine. I've been taking care of him. By poisoning him and stealing from him. Alice was reaching for the door handle when red and blue lights flashed through the front windows. 2 police cars had pulled into the driveway. Alice froze, her hand on the doorknob, caught between the family she'd betrayed and the consequences she'd never expected to face. Alice Brennan, came a voice from the porch. This is Detective Sarah Winters. We need to talk. Detective Sarah Winters was a woman in her 40s with the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd seen every form of human deception. She stepped into my living room, surveyed the evidence spread across every surface, and nodded approvingly. Mr. Brennan, I understand you've been documenting elder abuse. 3 weeks of systematic theft, fraud, and medication tampering. I replied, gesturing to the materials. All documented with dates, times, and evidence. Detective Winters examined my journal, the nanny cam footage, the financial records. This is the most thorough victim documentation I've ever seen. Alice clutched her suitcase like a shield. Officer, my father is confused. He has dementia. These accusations are part of his paranoid delusions. Ma'am, I just watched video of you crushing pills into his coffee this morning. That's not a delusion. I was helping with his medications. Detective Winters held up the pill residue analysis Margaret had provided. These are over-the-counter sleep aids, not prescribed medications. You were drugging him without his consent. Alice's desperation reached new heights. You don't understand. He was already declining. I was trying to manage his condition. By stealing $60,000 from his accounts, I was protecting his assets. Detective Winters opened her handcuffs. Alice Brennan, you're under arrest for elder abuse, financial fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit involuntary commitment. As the detective read Alice her rights, my daughter's mask finally fell away completely. The concerned caregiver disappeared, replaced by cold fury. This isn't over, Alice snarled at me. You think you're so smart, but you're still just a confused old man. Nobody will believe you. The evidence speaks for itself, Detective Winters said, leading Alice toward the door. Alice's final words as they put her in the patrol car were screaming that I was really confused and needed professional help. Even in handcuffs, she was still trying to control the narrative. After the police left, my living room felt different. Cleaner. Like an infection had been removed. David sat heavily on the couch, his head in his hands. Dad, I'm so sorry. I believed her over you. She's very convincing. She had me doubting myself for weeks. Karen was still staring at my journal. This handwriting is perfectly clear. Every entry is detailed and coherent. How could we have thought you had dementia? Because she was poisoning me just enough to create confusion, then using that confusion as evidence. It's called gaslighting. Uncle Pete shook his head. In 30 years of family gatherings, I never saw Alice's true nature. Sociopaths are excellent at hiding who they really are, I said. They study what people want to see and become that person. Over the next few days, I began reclaiming my life. Margaret helped me retrieve everything from Alice's storage unit. 40 years of memories returned to their proper places. Martha's china in the dining room cabinet, my books back on their shelves, photo albums arranged chronologically. I canceled the Sunset Manor admission and got a full refund. The facility administrator was horrified when I explained the circumstances. Mr. Brennan, we've seen family members lie about elderly relatives' conditions before, but never to this extent. We're implementing new verification procedures because of your case. Margaret Kowalski became my unofficial hero. Without her nursing expertise and willingness to help, Alice's plan might have succeeded. You saved my life, I told her over coffee in her kitchen. You saved your own life by being smart enough to document everything. I just provided technical support. Still, I owe you a debt I can never repay. Just promise me you'll help other seniors who find themselves in similar situations." 6 months later, I sat in a courtroom watching Alice face justice. She'd plea bargained down to 2 years in prison plus full restitution, but only after her public defender explained that my evidence was ironclad. "Your Honor," I said during my victim impact statement, "Alice Brennan didn't just steal my money or belongings. She stole months of my life, my relationships with family members, and nearly my freedom itself. But in the end, she gave me something too." The judge leaned forward. "What's that, Mr. Brennan?" "She reminded me that I'm stronger than I thought. That age brings wisdom, not weakness, and that the truth is worth fighting for." Alice received her sentence without emotion, but I saw her shoot one last look of hatred in my direction. Even facing prison, she couldn't accept that her confused father had outsmarted her. A year later, I was volunteering with the Elder Justice Coalition, teaching other seniors how to recognize and document abuse. My background in education proved invaluable in helping people understand the warning signs. "The most important thing," I told my groups, "is to trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And always document everything." One evening, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Mr. Brennan? My name is Frank Morrison. I got your number from the Elder Justice Hotline. I think I need help." "What's happening, Frank?" "My son's girlfriend moved in after my wife died. She's been very helpful, maybe too helpful. I'm starting to feel confused all the time, and she keeps talking about how I need better care." I felt a familiar chill. "Frank, when did this confusion start?" "Right after she began making my morning coffee." "Frank, I want you to listen to me very carefully. Do you have a notebook?" That night, I pulled out my old journal one last time. 23 days of meticulous documentation that had saved my life and destroyed Alice's lies. I flipped through pages of careful handwriting, precise timestamps, and detailed observations. Evidence that a confused old man had built a case strong enough to put his abuser behind bars. I carried the journal to the fireplace and struck a match. The pages curled and blackened, releasing months of anger and fear into smoke. I didn't need to document my mental acuity anymore. Everyone knew exactly how sharp my mind was. As the last page burned, I remembered Alice's first words at Martha's funeral. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll take care of everything now." She'd been half right. Someone had taken care of everything, just not the way she'd planned. They said I was losing my memory, but I'll never forget the day I got my life back. If you enjoyed this story, please support me by liking this video and subscribing to this channel. Don't forget to share this life lesson with your loved ones. To listen to more stories, click on one of the boxes showing on your screen. Thank you for listening.